Hi everybody, I'm Mark, a scuba diving instructor, and welcome to Scuba Diver magazine. So this video continues the Scuba Basics series, and today we're taking a look at your ears and how they can affect your dive. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Scuba Diver magazine channel to see the very latest news and tips in the scuba diving world. So one of the hardest parts about being a scuba diving professional is explaining how a student can best equalize their ears, because unlike other skills where we can literally see what you're doing, and if you're doing anything wrong, we can't actually see what you're actually doing to equalize. Now, some divers are lucky enough to never have an issue with equalizing, and they barely have any discomfort in their ears at all. But some divers can suffer from difficulty whilst equalizing their ears, and in today's video we're going to give those divers some tips and tricks on how to stop your ears from ruining your dive. The first thing that we need to do is lay the foundations on why we need to equalize our ears, because this may help you understand exactly what's happening and how to prevent it. So as we descend and go deeper underwater, the pressure around us is increasing because of the weight of the water on top of us bearing down. Because air is compressible, meaning that you can squish it down into a smaller space with enough force and pressure, any air spaces inside our body will start to shrink down the deeper we go. In a lot of these air spaces, it isn't much of an issue because our body is made so that these air spaces will equalize themselves, or the change in volume just kind of stretches some membranes that are pretty stretchy anyway. The problem comes when some tissues and membranes are too sensitive and delicate to be stretched, and they don't automatically equalize that air chamber. The main problem airspace is in the middle ear on the inside of your head. So the middle ear is a very delicate place because it deals with tiny little bones and structures that turn vibrations into what you hear. The middle ear isn't completely sealed though. There's a small tube that links to your throat called the eustachian tube. So this tube acts as a bit of a valve between the nasopharynx and the middle ear, and to equalize the middle ear we need to open this tube up so a tiny amount of gas can get into your middle ear to alleviate that vacuum created inside. You don't need to equalize on the way back up normally, because as you go up, the gas inside starts to expand and it pushes its way through the eustachian tube. And you can often hear this when it's happening. It's the kind of that squealing sound that you can hear on the way out. One way to help yourself equalize happens before you even see the ocean. Before a dive in the morning and even on the way to the dive site, I practice equalizing my ears early. By equalizing your ears on the dry land, you're stretching the muscles, kind of moving tissues in your throat and just loosening things up. I mean, before a race or a competition, athletes stretch their muscles to get them ready, and the same goes for us divers. So in my car and kind of setting up my gear, I'll be kind of yawning a lot, not because I'm tired, but because it's just kind of stretching the muscles and everything so that they work properly when they need to. Chewing gum can also help with this, sort of before and even between dives. The repetitive movement and kind of chewing can get things ready and keep the salt out of your mouth as well between dives. Another thing that you can do before a dive is a list of things not to do, I'm afraid. If you struggle with equalizing your ears, then no smoking and no alcohol before a dive. Now that's not just me being a buzzkill, but tobacco and alcohol can actually cause some of the tissues in your ear, nose and throat to swell up slightly. Not enough to notice kind of day to day, but when you need to equalize a small airspace through tiny openings, that small amount of swelling can actually cause those openings to seal and become closenings. That's a technical term. Salt water can also cause tissues in your nose and throat to swell up too, so it's best to keep salt water out of your nose, especially when you're sort of right at the beginning in shallow waters. Also, don't drink and dive at all. Not just so that you can equalize, but alcohol and scuba diving don't really go together very well. I mean, we don't fully understand alcohol's effects on our bodies when we're under pressure and how it can affect our decompression. We don't know. So just no alcohol well before a dive. On a dive trip, I keep my personal alcohol consumption to a minimum and give my body plenty of time to get rid of it well before the next dive. When you're descending, you need to be equalizing early and very often. If you feel the slightest discomfort in your ears, then it could already be too late to be able to equalize. When you descend to the point of discomfort, in a lot of cases, the increased pressure can actually seal those openings, so no matter how well you equalize, the pressure is literally keeping those openings closed. That's why we teach you to ascend a little bit and try to equalize again at a shallower depth, to alleviate that pressure a little so that your eustachian tube can actually open at all. The biggest change in pressure occurs in the first 10 meters or 30 feet. That's where the change in pressure is the greatest, so if you don't equalize in very shallow water, you may not be able to deeper. So the moment your head goes under the water, start equalizing and keep equalizing until you reach your maximum depth. When you're equalizing properly, you cannot over-equalize or equalize too much. That being said, don't try to force it. Equalizing is a gentle, passive action and doesn't require any force. No more force than literally clicking a mouse button when your mouse and computer's working properly. It's a gentle push, and if you feel like you have to push or equalize hard, then you may be too deep already. The most common method that new scuba divers are taught is the Valsalva method, pinch your nose and blow. Named for the 17th century physician Antonio Maria Valsalva, blowing against a blocked nose can open the eustachian tubes and equalize your ears. This method works well for most divers, but doesn't work for everybody. If your tubes are locked because of depth, Valsalva just won't work, and if you blow too hard, and too long, you can actually end up hurting yourself. So if a gentle blow doesn't work, then just try and move on to a different method. Swallowing, wiggling your jaw and yawning can be effective methods to open up your eustachian tubes, and there are a few popular methods that even have names, but they're hard for me to kind of show you, so I'm going to do my best to describe them to you. The first of which is the method that I use personally, which has the lovely name of voluntary tubal opening, or VTO. And this is basically the yawn without the kind of part. If you tense the muscles in your throat and tongue kind of downwards and inwards, a bit like a yawn, and basically the benefit of this maneuver is that it's hands-free. You can, and basically do it with enough practice, you can basically hold your tubes opening all the way down. The Toynbee maneuver is where you pinch your nose and swallow. Swallowing kind of pulls your eustachian tubes open whilst your tongue basically pushes air up towards the middle ear. Frenzel has you pinch your nose again whilst closing your throat as if you're kind of tensing to pick something heavy up, and then you make a K sound in your mouth, which lifts the back of your tongue like a swallow, which combined with the closed throat and kind of pinched nose pushes air back up into your tubes. And then you get combinations like the Lowry, which combines the Valsalva and the Toynbee, so pinch your nose, blow and swallow. You get the Edmonds as well, where you tense the soft palate and your throat, push your lower jaw kind of outwards and pinch your nose and blow. Basically, it's all a lot to kind of move the tissues around in your jaw and then allow or push air up towards the eustachian tubes in the back of your throat. Equalizing your ears isn't the only way that your ears can give you grief from a dive, though. Some divers suffer from ear infections in their outer ears and is often called swimmer's ear. Swimmer's ear isn't caused by diving in dirty water, it's caused by water sitting in your outer ear. The water causes the cell linings of your ear canal to swell up a little bit, just like how your skin naturally swells after a long bath, only it can cause teeny tiny gaps in that skin where the bacteria that normally live in your ear canal, they can now sneak in and do what bacteria do best, multiply. It'll start to itch a little bit, and if left untreated, it will swell and cause you all sorts of grief. The best treatment is prevention. After a dive, dry out your ears properly, but don't poke anything in them if you can avoid it. There are some great ear drops that you can find for scuba divers or even just swimmers that you put in your ears after a dive, which dry out your ear canals and kill some of the nasties, but be sure to use them correctly. I've also heard of divers using olive oil or almond oil to coat the ears before a dive. This can help lessen water retention. I've never tried it myself, but some divers have said some good things. If you do suffer with ear problems, then do your best to get your ears ready and prepared before the dive so they're ready when you need them. And equalize as soon as your head goes under the water. Try to avoid tobacco and alcohol, and do your best to stop salt water from going up your nose or in your mouth. If you feel any discomfort whilst descending, then go up a little bit and try a different method. After your dive, get all of the water out of your ears that you can so that it doesn't cause an infection, and those are really the main points. So let us know if you struggle with your ears on a dive, and maybe we can help you get through it. And let us know what method you prefer to equalize your ears and prevent ear infections. Put your tips down in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Scuba Diver magazine channel. I've been Mark, thank you for watching, and of course, safe diving.